Hi and welcome everyone to our 73rd episode of The Little Inside. Surprisingly, my name is still Toby, and this week I'm going to talk a little bit about how to deal with worrying specifically. So let's get started right after the intro. Are you sometimes worried? Well, I certainly am, and I meet a lot of people that are worried every week. So we can be worried about all kinds of things. You can be worried about the weather, you can be worried about the future, you can be worried about the past, you can be worried about other people, about yourself, your mind, you can be worried about your feelings, your emotions. Well, I think it's really infinite. You could be literally worried about anything. So since worrying is such a predominant state in our mind, is such an important emotion that most of us feel on a consistent basis, I think it would be important to kind of cover that in one of these little insights. So I find that there are 5 things that are really, really helpful when it comes to dealing with worrying or other fear-based emotions particularly. So I'm going to go into these 5 little kind of, you can call them like techniques if you like. You go into these 5 little techniques that will help you deal a little bit better with the state of worrying. I really do hope that this video helps you with that. So let's get right into the first of those 5. The first is all about considering your options. Okay, so in short, you can call the first step options. Now, when you contemplate options, that means you want to contemplate possibilities. See, very often when we worry, we pick one possibility. Let's say, for example, you worry that you might get ill in the future. And so that can be a very real fear. Oh, I might get ill. I might have an accident, and what if I have an accident and nobody can take care of me? Okay, let's see. Let's just have a look into that particular type of worry about our health, being worried about whether or not I will be comfortable in the future. Now, why would we pick just only that one possible outcome of getting ill, right? When health is equally as valid an option, right? So you can see that many people, when they worry, they fixate on just one possible outcome, one possible catastrophic, problematic, horrific version of life that is about to happen to them, and the likelihood that this is going to happen to them is really high in their own mind, right? So when I worry, I notice very clearly that my mind shows me this kind of horror movie of my future, and it shows it very vividly, and it shows it in a way with all the emotional background music, and it shows me these pictures of myself, of how I will fail, of how I will get ill, and how everything will go down, and it will end up horrible in horrible ways. And it puts me into a state that is quite uncomfortable. So I feel a faster heartbeat, I feel my breath is changing, I feel uncomfortable underneath my own skin. All that is a result of contemplating this one vicious possible outcome that life will present me with in my future. I think it's a good idea to kind of question these movies that the mind shows you from time to time, and to consider that there are also other options. Yes, so you kind of want to ask your mind, well, is this the absolute only thing that can happen to me? And is this one also finite? Will this be finite, even given that this could happen actually? Will it last, or will it be ultimately really, really bad? Will it lead me into this endless, infinite downward spiral? Or, well, how was it in my life in the past so far? What are my experiences with my life? I certainly have lived through some very unpleasant things in my life, and I'm sure most of you did. And if you contemplate that these things really never last, and it's never really just bad. There's also so many good things about what's happening to us. So it's really, really important to contemplate that it's never just one-sided. It's never just black or white. Things change. And so there's many, many options. Also, why just pick that one negative outcome when you could also equally pick a positive outcome? Like, instead of going, what if I lose all my money in the future? Why not go, what if I get more money in the future? I mean, it's equally absurd. It's equally not real. We're thinking about events that are not here, that are just possibilities. And we go through these we flip through this system of possibilities in our mind, and then we pick these nasty ones and we feel anxious and horrible about them. And it's important to sometimes kind of wake up to that fact. What am I doing to myself here right now? I'm thinking about things that might go wrong. Why not think about things that might go right as well? So I'm not saying that you should exclusively think about things going right or exclusively think about things going wrong, but kind of put them in balance and get some perspective on that. So that would be the first option. The second point of contemplation for me is always the point of action. It doesn't really matter what happens to you in life. You always have a choice of how you react to what is happening to you, right? It matters how you take it. So if something bad is happening to you, let's say an illness comes, or you lose money, or you lose someone that you love very much, there is always an option given to you of how to respond to that. You can either grow through it in kindness, in compassion, in forgiveness, in understanding, or you can take it in a bad way. You can just feel defeated by it, or something like that. And even that is normal and human. Sometimes you just feel stuck. You just feel defeated. It's kind of part of our condition, and we all go through these emotions. Also important point to contemplate, actually. It's not just only me that has a problem. It's all of us. We all have problems throughout our lifetime, all the time. There's nobody without any problems. So it's very important to kind of feel like, okay, I'm not alone in this. There's so many people around me who go through this. And all of us equally have this wonderful choice of, how do I respond to that? How do I take that? How do I see that? What's my perspective on this? We can play with that. We can change it. Okay, so that's a great power, actually. You're not just, your hands are not bound, really. You can always respond, whether you're responding with your mind or emotionally, or with a physical or verbal action, the way you talk to other people in this situation, the way you take it mentally, the way you contemplate it in your mind. There's always a possibility of reacting differently to it and making even adverse circumstances into something really, really nice. Right? The traditional example that Ajahn Brahm is often giving is that what do you do if life dumps a heap of dung in front of your door, right? You can use it as fertilizer. So that's the idea. If shit happens, then you can use that shit as fertilizer, and that is always an option. So that's the second point. Now the third point that will help you to deal with worries is presence. So you want to come back into what is real. Come back into this moment. Reconnect with your breathing. Reconnect with the sounds around you. For me, particularly, sounds are quite a helpful anchor. Very often, if I focus on my breath when I'm worried, I notice that it might be a kind of a very worrisome type of breathing. And if I focus on the breath in that moment, it might still enhance my worries even in some ways. So sometimes it's just nice for me to focus on what kind of sounds are going on around me right now. So I listen to the birds outside or the aircon that hums in the room, and I just anchor my mind there and I keep it there. And I do that with the knowledge that I'm helping myself to calm down, to relax, to find rest. Because if I'm not well rested, if I'm not at ease with myself right here and now, chances are that I'm not at ease with myself in the later following moments. So it's really important to somehow break the cycle of freaking out about something and coming into a moment of stillness, or to value stillness and relaxation and presence more than thinking about possible scenarios. And sometimes it really does help to enter presence not immediately, but first kind of skillfully think yourself through the situation. Change your perspectives, see if there's another way of thinking about it, see if you can somehow find some distance first from the mental movie that makes you worried, and then come into the presence. Then come into just the knowledge that you are sitting here in a chair, there's the sound of an aircon, there's a few birds outside, and then just listen to that for a little while. And the mind will have this tendency, particularly when you're worried about something, and if it's acute, to pull you back into the worrying. The worrying doesn't really just want to fade. It wants to stay alive. So it wants to pull you back into it. No, you need to worry about this. Now, it's really, really important. You have to freak out about it. Do I really have to freak out about it? Does it help if I'm worried? It never really does help if you observe. It's just making you miserable. And if you're miserable, really, it doesn't help you. So what helps you more is if you allow yourself to become calm. It gives you some perspective. Then you can change the situation. You can work through it from a much more detached and relaxed way. So that's the, is it the third point? I think presence, yes. Now the fourth point is emptiness or truth. So as you're looking right at your worries, you can, for example, look right at your worries. When you feel worried, then notice, okay, the body is experiencing a set of feelings rushing through the body. There's this aliveness, this vibrancy, this energy to worry that just buzzes in and around your body. Connect to that, feel it. Okay, so you want to give it some space to be right there. You can even tell your mind, all right, this is the habit of worrying, so you go and do your thing, dear worries. You can do whatever you want. You can dance. I'm going to use the opportunity to understand you guys a little bit better. Okay, so you look at your worries as they move around in your body. You have the feelings, then you have thoughts, and that's kind of enough when you're dealing with worrying. You want to just see it in terms of these two. There is feeling and then there is thinking. Thinking in terms of talking inside of your head, the voice in your head, or images that your mind might show you. You look at this is going to be horrible. Or it just tells you stories. And then there's the emotional background music to it, the feelings that you feel simultaneously in your body. Now, can you see the feelings as what they are, which is just chemical reactions to a thought process? And it's just chemical reactions in your body. It's just energy moving through the body. That's what that really is. As you watch them in terms of impermanence. You see that these feelings come and go, they move. They arise, they disappear. And as you look at them, you simultaneously really let them be as well. Because you want to study them, you don't want to get rid of them anymore. That's a little secret step that's underneath that. Because you let your feelings be for the sake of studying them, for the sake of understanding them, you give them space, and within that space they can dissolve into emptiness. They reveal their real state. It's just something happening. It doesn't have any inherent value unless you give it one by thinking about it in specific ways. So that would be the fourth way of dealing with worries. You look right at them. You understand them as they dance right here in this moment in terms of impermanence, and you understand them in terms of them not being who I essentially am, but just something that happens almost just like a habit. and then let them dissolve into their original state, which is emptiness. And last but not least would be kindness. Now, kindness I consider to be one of the most powerful tools for myself when dealing with fearful states such as worry and so forth. See, when your mind is worrying, when it's unhappy, then it's really important to know that it needs help. It needs a friend. It needs somebody to be careful, gentle, and nice to it. Some of the nicest experience that I've made when I was in a state of turmoil was when there was a friend that unconditionally accepted me in that state and could relate to me and say, look, I understand you. I've went through this many, many times too, and it's okay. You're not alone in this. You are going to be fine. And this is kindness. That's what kindness really does. First of all, kindness accepts. It gives you space, and it gives the worrying mind space. It doesn't oppress it. It doesn't tell the worrying mind, you should not be here. How do I get rid of you? And it wants to push it out. It accepts it. It says, all right, dear worrying mind, I see that you're hurting, that you're in pain. Now, let me give you some space. Let me help you to be. So we're not trying to get rid of the worrying. We're not trying to push it out, because really this is what creates all this worrying, this inner control freak. We want to be in control of the future, of other people, of ourselves. The worrying mind, I need to control my worrying mind. And that enhances the worries because it's so oppressive to our own mind. So kindness is kind of like that. You let it be. You're not interfering with this process. You understand it's a natural process that runs through this body, runs through this mind. We live in such stressful times, constantly busy. There's constant information input. So many people posting so many things online. There's so many news. You get all these, the suffering of the world is kind of coming into us every day through these devices, through the news that we consume. All the human confusion and pain is continuously consumed. It creates an enormously oppressive atmosphere in the mind. So sometimes it's just so refreshing to leave yourself alone, to not try to not worry, to realize that, okay, this worrying mind is part of the human condition, and it's okay for it to be there. So you take away resistance, you drop resistance. You're being kind to yourself. You give yourself space to be a human being with human emotions. And it's okay to hurt. It's okay to feel bad. And at the moment when you're really okay with it, and that is difficult with kindness, really, once you're really okay with this human condition, with yourself, with your feelings, with your thoughts, they fade. And then you will realize gradually, oh, these thoughts, these feelings, these worries, they come because I constantly have to be in control of myself and the world around me. And then we slowly start to value letting go and release over control and fear. And so this is 5 ways that help me when I'm dealing with my worries. So there's a bit of a misleading way very often if you find online, there's 5 ways to deal with worrying or something like that. It's a catchy line. It gets many people to be interested in that object. So I understand the use and meaning of these lines. But really, one of the most powerful ways, if you stop dealing with yourself and you give yourself a break, you let yourself be. You're not trying to achieve anything. You're not trying to be super spiritual and holy, getting rid of all the dark stuff, all the bad things. But you are here to see that all this is part of our human nature. And we all feel these things. And it's okay. All right, so here we are slowly coming to an end of this episode. I, as usually, hope that it was really helpful and meaningful for you. If you do have any questions or you want to write something in the comment section below, feel free to do so. I'm always happy to read your guys' comments, and I'm always happy to know that it works for you and it helps you on your path. And well, so this is pretty much it for this week, and I'm out for now, and wish all of you a wonderful and relaxed next week. Bye bye.